The U.S. mainstream media and government are right now pushing for a deadly premature reopening of the economy, while at the same time blaming China for the entire virus in some cases. And it's just a lot of disturbing shit. So in a previous episode of the podcast, I mentioned that the corporate class of our planet is in a challenging position right now, economically due to the COVID-19 lockdown measures crushing the capitalist economy. The capitalists are caught between protecting public health and protecting their bottom line. And it is important to keep in mind that the lockdown measures are saving a lot of lives by slowing down the spread of the virus, which in effect slows down the flow of patients in our hospitals, which in effect reduces the overburdening of our healthcare system. It's what everyone's been calling flattening the curve. So it is just the choice between saving human lives and profit. And as always, in this hellscape of an economy, profit prevails. The IHME has released findings this week suggesting that as many as 30 states may be in a position to undo social distancing measures by May 20th. And the scientific community, all of it, and press, has completely discredited this analysis and finding, yet they are nowhere to be seen in U.S. media. Through the mainstream media in the United States, there seems to be a unanimous agreement to start the economy back up and push for a return to work. And they're framing it as the only way to stop the economy from completely imploding. They make it seem like the only two options are to open the economy right way or wait a little bit and then open the economy all the way. And this is a false dichotomy that's being pushed by the mainstream media, like all of it. Making serious moves towards supporting the people who can't work during a pandemic is easily possible. And yes, that would prevent the destruction of the economy for the average worker, or at the very least, it would dramatically decrease it, and it would also save many lives when compared to sending people back to work right now. Just think about it. They're saying that the only way for the economy to still survive is to have people risk their lives by going back to work. So when they spend $2 trillion on giant corporations and it disproportionately makes a bunch of people really rich, why couldn't they just take those $2 trillion and put it into everybody's bank account? That's money that the bank gets to use. So the money goes in bank and the money's actually given to the American people. And that's the economy, is the people. The way they talk about economics is pretty much all lies on mainstream media. It really is. The idea that we need to bail out giant corporations in order to keep our economy afloat? Nonsense. That's nonsense. But, of course, they are refusing to do anything in regard to helping the average American in a significant way. They would rather sacrifice the blood of workers and reopen the economy prematurely, since it's good for their bottom line. It's good for the bottom line of the corporations, and therefore it's also good for big money donors to politicians at large, as well as basically all mainstream media companies. Those are either owned or are big corporations. They literally just printed $6 trillion for the corporations, pretty much. So the money's there, and these lies are getting more and more obvious by the week. The problem is that they're too greedy to compensate the country for the good of public safety. And there will be a larger body count from this crisis if they get their way. And they fucking know this. And this reopening of the economy is supported by both of the presidential candidates, Biden and Trump, would both rather see innocent people die rather than have corporate America suffer more losses. They're going to do everything they can to make it seem like we have no choice but to do this. And they will also pretend like the average American wants the lockdown to end right now, which is not true. Polling shows a large majority of Americans want to keep the lockdown, but also many of them are desperate for resources. Thousands are standing in food lines. Millions and millions unemployed. Massive amounts of pain out there. But the answer isn't forcing them back to work. The answer is giving them resources and keeping the lockdown. It isn't that fucking complicated. The wealthiest country on the planet. In almost every major city, the food banks are becoming overburdened. People are literally fucking starving. And they pass a stimulus bill 3.5 that doesn't do shit? I can't get over that. I can't get over that. Try to defend Bernie Sanders for not calling that out. Try to defend Bernie Sanders for not calling for a real vote instead of a voice vote. Any senator could have done that. Try to defend Bernie Sanders for that while people are starving in our country. The perfect example of this media bullshit narrative happened this last Monday when the news was reporting on the protests against the shutdown. Notice how all the mainstream media outlets are totally fine covering right-wing protests that just happen to be supporting the same thing that corporations are. But a majority of the country isn't supporting it. And also notice that they aren't covering the mass strikes or walkouts or car protests against elected officials that have happened by the left. They aren't covering the Amazon strikes. They aren't covering the McDonald's strikes. They aren't covering the Whole Foods strikes. They're covering people protesting basic public safety practices instead. They're always open to right-wing ideas, even when they're massively unpopular and even damaging, but often not open to covering even moderately socialist or social democratic ideas. They act fucking allergic to them. This is because, by definition, the left threatens the status quo. The left is about changing and progressing the economy, the political system, and society as a whole, including all of the power structures involved, while the right is about conserving the current society and power structures within it. So if you look at it that way, it is easy to see why the power structures favor the right wing. This is the reason the United States is so right-wing compared to other Western countries. Leftist ideas are always left out, and propaganda in the United States is very effective. So it makes complete logical sense. The right-wingers are not suppressed to the same extent, even if they feel like they are on college campuses or whatever. When you actually challenge power and the current political and economic structures, then they see you as a direct threat to their power, and they will crush you. Just to name a few examples: Eugene Debs, Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, the Black Panthers, and I'm sure there are countless other examples in all of human history. The push to start up the United States economy again is strikingly opposing to the value of humanity. If the economy is opened again too soon, we will see a lot more people die than needed. We had months to prepare and we did nothing at all.